What's up, everyone? It's Morgan Thomas here. Another episode of the Morgan Thomas Show. I'm excited to have you here with us Thursday night, 7 p.m. You know what that means. It's your boys, Morgan Thomas, Big Al, Alan Adams, and Mr. Houston Burnett. Before I bring them in, I wanted to let you know how excited I am to have you on the show tonight. It's not just a show about me or the fellas. It is also a show about you. Get in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from, and what your question is tonight. Your question, concern, emotional outburst, everything and anything about Clemson football, basketball, baseball, softball, whatever you want to talk about tonight, get in the chat. And if you want to help out the show, you can make sure to hit the like button over on Facebook or YouTube. We're actually on Twitter as well. I can't see the Twitter chat. So if you're over there commenting on Twitter, unfortunately, I can't see that. Hopefully you're still enjoying the show. But go ahead and come on over to YouTube or Facebook or wherever. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you're feeling extra special, make sure to share with a friend and let them know about our show, because we do all kinds of Clemson content every single week. And we do a live show every Thursday night, 7 p.m. So thankful so much for everyone to be in. Big weekend this weekend. I know everybody's still kind of licking their wounds, especially me, from last weekend, the game we won't talk about. Maybe we will. But this weekend, another big game for the Tigers. Their opportunity to become ACC champions again. They weren't ACC champions last year, so you cannot take it for granted. We will talk about that and so much more. Before we do, though, let me get my co-hosts on, because I know those are the guys you actually came for and not me. Let me bring up Big Al, Alan Adams. Big Al, welcome in, sir.
It's good to be here. I'd like to say it's great to be here, but I mean, we all know what happened last Saturday. I was not expecting to have this type of show today. I've mentally prepared myself. I'm ready to go. We're going to talk Tigers, and we're going to talk, hopefully, an ACC championship this weekend, and then we'll be in a little bit better mood, maybe, and end on a better note. So Houston, we already know, is in a mood, but still, I think he's going to be fine for tonight. We'll keep him under control.
Houston's a little ornery, I hear. Well, maybe we'll bring him in. Mr. Houston Burnett, welcome.
I am ornery. I'm just going to go ahead and say it and get this out of the way. I mean, if we're not going to talk about it, that's fine. I've made peace with myself over that, but yeah, I'm here. I need a drink, but I'm here.
Well, it was a disappointing loss for the Tigers last weekend, and a rivalry game that many Tiger fans would love to just forget. And we can talk about that for sure. We'll get in and talk about anything you want to talk about. You guys want to go around the horn, and we'll also get in the chat as well. Let's go through and give some guys some shout outs. We got Tyson, Edward, Tiggs, Hunter, Mitchell, Kevron, Tyree, Madeline, Donnie, ton of people, Rusty, Corporal, Bill gets in, Taco Gaming, and Tyson as well. And thank you so much for getting in. Again, make sure you hit the like button. We got about 24 people watching over on YouTube right now. I don't know how many people on Facebook or Twitter, but get in, shout out into the chat, and let us know your question of the night. Clemson, has a lot going on this weekend. I'm excited for it. And let's get in the chat real quick and see what everybody has to say so far. So Tyson gets in, says, Tyson Ferguson in the chat from the Valley of the Sun. Welcome in. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Edward gets in, says, go Tigers, with a bunch of tiger emojis there. And Tyson gets back in and says, excited to see the team on Saturday. Want to see us finish strong. We know what our strength is, our weaknesses on offense, the running game, tight end, passing game, and Antonio Williams. I think that's a good place to start. We'll start there, fellas. As much as we, let's start on a positive note. As much as we can beat up things that happened last weekend, is there anything that you feel like is still a bright spot, is still, if you were the coordinator, if you were the head coach, that you could try to rally the troops around and build on something? We could start offense, defense, whatever you want to do. But is there something that you feel like, even in a really nasty loss, bitter loss, something you can build on? Al, we'll start with you.
I mean, I think you got to start with Shipley. He had a great run or yards per carry in the game the other night. A lot of people are wondering what the world happened to him at the end of the game. And, it's obviously a fair question, but I think that's kind of where you start. Maffa looks good as well. Our tight ends, if we throw to them, they're usually do a pretty good job. We didn't do a lot of that on Saturday. I think that got us into some trouble. I know they were, they went to Davis one time, which was not only a bad decision, but a terrible throw. And one time we had Brenningstool wide open, and it got batted at the line. That would have been like a 30-yard completion, I think. So it was frustrating. I think the tight ends can be a big strength of ours, but they just, honestly, they haven't been, because I don't think we've used them well enough. I don't think we've used them enough at all quantity-wise either. So, we'll see what happens. They've used them a little bit more than we have, but still not enough, in my opinion. But Shipley's the guy you got to go to right now. Feed the man until they prove they can stop him consistently.
Big point there. Last weekend, Jake Brenningstool, only one catch. You guys know he was recruited higher than Brock Bowers. Obviously, Brock Bowers has flourished in a young age. It seems like Jake Brenningstool has some really good tools. Maybe he's not as refined as Bowers, but it's hard for me as a fan looking at it saying, well, how do you know how good he is if he gets one catch? We need more from that. We need more Davis Allen. We need more Jake Brenningstool. Houston, are you feeling the same way with the tight ends and running backs as well?
I mean, yeah, but here's the thing. Like, you're running for 7 yards of carry. You need to run the ball. That is coaching. There's no way to say it's the dumbest coaching decision I've ever seen. You're running the ball. Clemson ran for 237 yards and lost. That is inexcusable.
Rarely happens.
You're running for 237 yards and you stop intentionally. We counted multiple times where they threw the ball 3, 4, and 5 times in a row, and that's just not working. It's not. Run the ball. I don't care this week what kind of creativeness that you have. You want to get it out to the tight ends or Antonio Williams, that's fine, but run the ball. Like, if you got them and you're grounding and pounding them, stick with it. That's the thing that drove me up a wall, is that Clemson, along with turning the ball over inexcusably, got away from what was working. Running the ball. Run the daggum ball.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, when you look at Will Shipley, 15 carries, 132 yards, 8.8 yards average. You want to continue to give him the ball. Al, we have gone back and forth this year over what is Clemson supposed to set up, right? A lot of times I've thought, I feel like they're decent enough in the passing game to use that to open up the run game. It seems like that's what they wanted to do. When I look back at that second half of South Carolina, I think to myself, this is a team that just needed that one completion. That's all they wanted. They just needed that one completion to set up the run. Now, obviously, looking back, that seems like a terrible idea, according to Houston and myself and a lot of people out there. When you're running that good, why are you needing to set it up with the pass? I don't know. But it does seem like all year, second down has been a running down, has been a get those short yardage downs and set up a shorter third down. But for whatever reason, last weekend they didn't do that. Do you expect them to get back to the mean here? Was it as surprising to you that they kind of went off of what they've done all year?
Look, it was just it was a weird game. And, I know you hear Brandon Streeter talk about in the second half, they were bringing more linebackers in, more bodies in the box or whatever it may be to stop the run. And that's a fair point. Do you know why they're trying to stop the run? It's because you've dominated them with the run and your receivers can't make plays. So, of course, that's what they're going to do. And we tried to keep throwing the ball to these players, whether it be quarterback or receiver, that couldn't make the plays. So it was – look, I'm not the guy who likes to run it up the middle, 10 times in a row. Okay, it's not my style. I'm not a fan of it. And I'm the Clemson fan screaming, "Stop running the ball! You're not gaining any yards." But when you're gaining the yards that Shipley is gaining, you run it until they prove they can consistently stop it. We did not do it. It was very frustrating. I really, I hope they can get it mixed up this week and DJ's on his game. They can get some passing yards. I think this offense runs better and is able to move better. Obviously, when you can get some passing yards as well, it just a little more balance. But if it takes running the ball every play and we can score that way, that's what you need to do.
It's a fine line, right? Because then if you can't get any yards there, if they just start overloading it, which South Carolina was daring Clemson to pass the ball.
Yeah.
And they just, like I said, it felt like they just needed that one completion. And man, they could not even buy that. So hopefully this game coming up against North Carolina, who is a much worse defense than South Carolina, will prove to show what Clemson can get back on track. But I will say, obviously, North Carolina, up until the last couple of weeks, has been a much better offense. But both teams really playing pretty inconsistent right now. Clemson been getting worse week in and week out. Really, we because we watch it so much, our show, we've been talking about it really since like Florida State. Even though on the scoreboard it wasn't showing it, you could kind of feel it was going away. Something was they were losing something as the weeks went on. And, not only you're getting benched, but you're just not winning games now. So it makes it worse. Let's move on to someone else in the chat here. We got Tiggs in there. Mr. Morgan T, good evening, sir. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving. I had a good Thanksgiving, guys. Guys, Thanksgiving came back last week, and you didn't do a show. You refused to do a show, even though I asked. But since we didn't do a Thanksgiving show, fellas, I want to let you know how thankful I am for you guys for being a part of this show every single week that we can do it outside of last week because you guys wouldn't do it. But I'm so thankful for you guys. Getting to talk about Clemson football with your friends is one of the greatest things. It's awesome. It's fun. It's exciting. And that's one thing I want to remind everybody too, how far Clemson has come. Man, when we were in high school, I know I feel like that get off my lawn guy, but it really is great to see. I get it in the chat. Guys, I get it in the comments. They'll say, fans will say, how are we ever going to recruit anymore? Well, I know it's frustrating. I know you shouldn't lose to South Carolina. I know you shouldn't have an offense as terrible as this. But they've been in worse, and Dabo has been able to pull himself out of that. Remember the first ever recruiting dinner we went to, Big Al? They had 12 recruits.
Yeah.
12. If you told us 12 recruits right now, they'd be wanting to burn something down. But Dabo did it. Now, you have to hit on those recruits. Unfortunately, we've seen they've gotten 30 recruits sometimes and not hit on it at 12. So they need to get back into the mode of hitting in their recruiting and being more successful because, there is a little bit of a gap there, especially as we mentioned in wide receiver, just not really performing to what their ranking was. It's not because they weren't highly ranked, but, still, even with all the frustrations, super thankful to be able to talk some Clemson football because not everybody gets to do that. Some people actually have to talk South Carolina football, which, man, it's got to be even worse. So,
Not
all
this
right.
week.
Well, yeah, maybe not this week. But, Tyson says, looking forward to the show. Tig says, welcome one and all to Daboville. Let me ask you this, guys. Houston, I'll start with you. I know that when you're in the public eye and you have your name associated with something, I don't think people really understand that, you can't just go, you're not going to just come out and say fire everybody. And I don't even believe that's a good idea. Now, when you're maybe an anonymous person that nobody knows who you are, maybe you can come out and say that. But I still think it's a terrible idea to say, burn it all down.
Yeah. I mean, look, a coach is not going to say that, especially when you have a championship game on Saturday. Now, I know people that are closer in the program that might say, hey, look, he's saying this, but there might be some kind of changes, given that there might have been some other changes that could have happened last year. So I don't know. Like, I tend to be a little bit more of a cynical Clemson fan after a South Carolina loss. You can lose a lot of games, but if you lose to South Carolina, I am a sourpuss. I can't handle there's just no, I'm sorry, that's just how I am. And so I'm a little bit more cynical about everything. I don't know. He might keep everybody. DJ might come back. We might just run this all back again next year. But from what I understand, there might be some changes on the staff potentially. I don't know. There might be some movement from coaches to other jobs. I know Streeter is getting mentioned for the Liberty job, but I think that's going to get taken by Jamie Chadwell. But if Jamie Chadwell takes that job, that opens up Coastal. Coastal doesn't have as big of a budget as some people, so you might see it. I'm not going to be a preacher and say that's going to happen verbatim, but hey, that's a possibility. And then also, I think there's going to be some changes as far as, I don't want to say philosophy, but you may not see as hardened a Dabo when it comes to the portal this year, especially when it comes to the wide receivers and the secondary. You got to do something. And there's plenty of guys on this team that you need to focus on and develop and get better, and get them the right support to get better. Like Antonio Williams, Adam Randall, Cole Turner, and when he's healthy, Bo Collins, those need to be the focal point guys. But, if there's some movement in that room, you need to go to the portal ASAP because there's some guys that are starting to get in there that could actually contribute.
I think that's a key point that even Qualk mentioned on the radio is where you get in a situation where if you're maybe, and I'm not saying Dabo is reluctant to the portal because from what I've heard from inside the program is that as much as he gets picked on in the forums, Danny Pearman is really trying to land somebody. Dabo's really down on, pushing him to not down on him, but just like really, really lighting a fire under him, try to find somebody. They went after Oluwatimi, who's the leading center at Michigan. They went after him hard. They really, really wanted him, and he did not want to come to Clemson. They went after Osiris Torrent. I think that's how I'm saying it right. But the guy from Louisiana that followed Napier to Florida, they went after him very, very hard. And, just things didn't work out. And so they really did feel like they needed that middle inside offensive lineman, and they just couldn't get it. So they tried. Maybe they'll reassess, what worked, what didn't work. Because, Alan, you and I have mentioned the transfer portal is not Clemson is not God's gift to the guys in the transfer portal. We've said this many times. It has to be the right fit still. You can't just there's this fake there's this false sense of idea that you can just post 5 guys that are the best guys in the portal and say Clemson should get all these guys. I just don't think that's very realistic. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I wish you would go a little bit deeper into that because you did awesome on Mickey Plyler's show this morning. I heard you talking about it, and I totally agreed with everything you said with the portal. I mean, the fit is so important here. Yeah, it's shocking, right? I know. I was like, yeah, it's my man right there talking. He's doing good. He's making good points. It was I don't know. I think they're trying to use the portal. I think they're going to have to use the portal. I think the question is going to be, especially wide receiver. A lot of people are looking at our receivers, even though they're all 4 and 5 star guys, and they're thinking we need some receivers on this team. Well, do you have any room to take any receivers? Is the question. I don't really know. I don't know. I don't look at the numbers like
Yeah.
Morgan does, so I'm not really sure. I think at end you could have probably at least 1 or 2 maybe spots to fill. I'm not so down the secondary as Houston is, and I mean. I think we got a lot of young talent, or I think we have young talent there. Wiggins, obviously, he had a brutal game against Wake Forest. Wiggins has done okay to me other than that. I think he needs to put on a little bit of weight, but I think he's done all right after that. I still think Pride and Lucas can both be good players there. I think really it's safety right now. What are you going to have at safety? Makuba, bad game, man. He had a brutal game against South Carolina. I think he's getting put under the microscope a little too much. He's played too much good football, to worry about Makuba too much, I think. But I think end and receiver, if you're going somewhere, that's where you need to go.
Well, and
I think Makuba has gotten too cocky. I think he had a great season freshman year. He felt like he could do no wrong, and now it's coming to reality. Houston?
Well, I was going to say with a couple points to make. First on Makuba, yeah, maybe he is, maybe he's not. Like Makuba's a sophomore. What do sophomores do? Sophomore slump.
Sure.
And that's what I'm going to say is going to be. It's a sophomore slump.
But not Cade, though.
Well, yeah, he didn't have a freshman year to do anything with, so maybe he's going to be okay. I don't know, but you think about the wide receiver room. We just assume that everybody's just going to stay. Look, if there is changes, I would expect that there might be some guys that end up tossing their name in the portal. There might be a couple guys in there that view this as a time to get a fresh start somewhere else. Whatever your opinions are on who the quarterback is or any positions, but I think there's going to be a couple guys, especially like Alan mentioned it, on the line, maybe even in the secondary and at wide receiver that might say, you know what, I think they're changing things around. I think they're trying to fix some stuff. It might be time to jump in there myself and get in there. So that's when you're like, all right, let's attack this as quickly as we can and get some people in here. The last thing I'll say is when it comes to, when you mentioned God's gift to the portal, I think you're right. But I think also there's a lot of things, as much as losing the South Carolina draws the ire of some old rage that I had against Dabo in my younger days. There's a lot of things in the new age of football that he does right. I think how he approaches NIL, despite what every spoon-fed moron in the mainstream media says, using NIL is just an incentive and not a primary recruiting tool because you're looking for fit. You look for guys who want to get better. You're not looking for guys that want to make money. Okay, makes sense. And with the portal being strategic, that's fine. And it's just the execution piece of this. Obviously, you want a fit. You can't just have your cake and eat it too. Otherwise, you'll end up in a situation like Texas A&M or Michigan State where you had amazing years in the past and then things just come crashing down because you have no culture. You have no fit. You have a bunch of 22 guys that are looking for money and looking for playing time.
Yeah, I said that this morning about how and I even mentioned Michigan State about how, you could go into the portal, you could be that Brad Brownell and get you a couple of guys, but then they're gone the next year and you've got nothing. You've got no development. You're restarting every single year. And it's even harder in football because of the amount of players you need to make it all move and work. And they all need to work together and they need to gel and understand what each other's doing. And you can't do that if you're only here 1-2 years and you're out of there. But Clemson definitely needs to backfill. And I agree with Kwok in this. They need to backfill guys that they never did. You cannot always replace, if a guy stays till they're a junior and leaves on their way to being a senior, they leave then. You can't always replace those guys with freshmen. I get it that the freshmen may be talented, but they have zero experience. You're getting a guy who maybe was not very good, but but had a lot of experience with somebody who has no experience. It could be good. Maybe you don't know. You haven't really seen what they've done. So you're constantly fighting this battle of age and experience and even body build. Somebody who's 17, 18 is a lot different than somebody who's 20 or 21 or 19 and, a later 19. Those guys who've been in a college workout program and fitness training and diet regimen are going to be different, than those guys who are just coming from high school doing it on their own for the most part, unless they go to a big school. So I agree with Kwok in the sense that if you look back over the past 2 years, you've lost a ton of wide receivers and you've replaced them with freshmen, but you're missing something there still. You know what I mean? You're still missing that piece there. Those guys aren't fully ready yet. And then what if one of those freshmen gets injured? What if Troy Stellato gets injured? What if Adam Randall gets injured? What if Cole Turner ends up not being totally ready yet? Well, then all you've got is Antonio Williams. In 2 years, all you have is Antonio Williams. And then finally, a few games into it, it was Adam Randall was a little bit able to help, but he hasn't really shown up that much. So those last 2 years are not helping you that much, And what happens if the year before that, like your sophomores, your Brandon Spector gets injured, has COVID issues, your Will Taylor gets injured, your Dakari Collins leaves. Well, then all you got Spo Collins. Guess what? Then he messes his wrist up mid-game. Then you've got no sophomores, you've got no redshirt freshmen, and you've got only one true freshman, and that's basically where Clemson's at. It's pretty bad. We thought that it would be lean at secondary, but it's become very lean at wide receiver yet again. I think that's even more frustrating too, because Clemson seems to be continuing to struggle there with depth chart and roster. We know how it was when it was like Will Brown was the starting slot receiver, or at least the backup slot receiver. It didn't work out very well. Well, guess what? Bo Collins goes down. Who do they put out there? You really don't have many more options than Drew Sweeney. And I don't understand why you don't put. But you really don't have a ton of options.
Why don't you put Cole Turner out there? There should not be a Sweeney on the field. I don't care how injured.
I get the argument. I
don't care how banged up you are at wide receiver. Put Phil Moth out there before you put Sweeney out there.
Hey, go to 21. I mean, put your tight ends out there.
Yeah, put your tight ends out there. Do something. Don't put your son out there. You're just setting yourself up.
I will tell you this. Who do you trust to know the playbook front and back and actually run a route and know what they're doing? Maybe he's not the best blocker. Maybe he's not going to beat anybody, but at least you know there's be one player that's not clueless. Yeah, because that's what seems to be happening.
I'll say this. If that is the case, then somebody is above that wide receiver room that needs to go check out.
Something's going wrong with the wide receiver room. We all know it. I mean,
that needs to be addressed in a specific way.
All right, let's keep going because that wasn't even a question. All right, Hunter Goatfro gets in, says, "Hey, good evening, y'all. Go Tigers." Edward gets in talking about one of our previous discussions, says, "True, but does the play caller understand that?" Talking about the tight ends, Streeter has multiple times that he should have got the ball more to the running backs and the tight ends. When does he actually learn that? Do you feel like that for whatever, is there any explanation to you, Al, we'll start with you, of why Streeter seems to forget this?
So here's what's frustrating about the whole thing. And that's it. Edward nails it, really. He said this multiple times this year. Multiple times. We heard it with Tony Elliott and Travis Etienne. And we're hearing it now with Brandon Streeter and Will Shipley. And you hear it all season long. Really wish we would have got him the ball more. Well, guess what? You call the plays. Get him the ball more. It's not difficult. That's something I'll never understand. And I mean, they're acting like they don't know what to do. Get him the ball. And if it's not working, that's fine. If Will Shipley runs it and he's averaging 2.4 yards a carry, fine. Stop running. If they're stacking the box to stop it, you can do that. And I'm okay with that. If you can't pass the ball, oh well, at least you're trying something. But this whole crap about after the fact when he's averaging 7-8 yards a carry or whatever the heck it was on Saturday, and you wished you would have gotten the ball more, we can't put up with that nonsense. And that's what's frustrating to me, because I honestly believe Brandon Streeter has really introduced some good concepts this year. I think we've seen the middle of the field be used more, not enough, but more. And I think we've done well with that. And I think he's introduced a little, some wrinkles with some motion and some speed and some tempo at times. I think he's done a pretty good job at times. I think there are times within each game where he seems to, go brain dead. And it's frustrating to see because, he seems like he has such a good game plan going and all of a sudden it all goes haywire. I think he's done a lot of good things for the offense, but he's not been consistent enough for my liking. And against South Carolina, like we said, I mean, it was just a disaster in the second half.
Specifically,
Mitchell gets in and says, Morgan losing to Carolina and Beamer has me depressed. We'll give this one to Houston here. I feel like you're wanting this one, Houston. Dude is acting like he won a natty. He needs to be beaten again, and Dabo needs to punish them next year. I see it in the comments, man. Houston, you and I, we don't go and proactively reach out. During these past 7 years, how many times have you commented on a Carolina Gamecocks post or YouTube channel, or have you done anything like that? But it's like within hours, people are on our channel, Gamecock fans, just all over the place. Like, this is why you guys are in a terrible conference. And I'm like, well, you can only say that this year because you won. The last 7 years, you couldn't say that. I don't get it. If I'm winning the game that matters the most, which that is the key there. And Houston, I don't know if you agree. I think you do, but I knew something was scary. I said this pre-week. I said this the Monday, the Wednesday, the Friday before the game. It is scary to think that this is the game they're playing for, and Clemson has 2 more games to go and an ACC championship game. I'm not saying that they were looking ahead. I'm just saying that one team obviously had this was their target. This was their game of all games of the year to really, really show what they could do. Even Spencer Rattler said it. We didn't want to just stop at Tennessee. We wanted to show everybody that we could also take down Clemson. I don't know if Clemson really had that attitude and it hurt them.
No, I think they had the attitude. They just let their foot off the gas. It was 14-0. 14-0. And 3 separate times I looked over at the person to me in the stands and I said, let's get 1 stop and 1 score, and this game is over.
Bingo.
And Clemson never did it. Not one time. You know what they did, Morgan? They ran the most asinine kick return on a safety play. I don't know who called that, but they need to be that whatever money that they got spent on that needs to be taken back. And that needs to be, I mean, it was the dumbest thing. I wrote about this in Rubbing the Rock. Like when they extend the amount of coaches you can have on the field, get a special teams coordinator for the simple reason for them to be able to look at Dabo and say, you're an idiot if you do that. To do that. That's the most dumb thing
I've always had a problem using like 4th string guys on special teams. They'll sprinkle in 1 or 2 guys, but you use these guys that rarely get playing time. I know it looks good on your resume to say you're playing these guys, but I don't like it.
Off of that. They kept doing that, and then that's what ended up biting them. It's not necessarily that, South Carolina's been looking forward and Clemson's got 2 more games to play. They've done this before. Clemson beat South Carolina in 2014 and still had to play in a bowl game. They did it in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Well, 19 and then 21 with the bowl game. So we can say this was their Super Bowl. Clemson did not finish the job. And that's what I'm looking for is like, you can give me all this, it's not DJ's fault. It's not this. You can massage this out. I want to see some change, man. And I'm not mad. I'm not going to sit here and just be like, hey, look, we're gone forever. The dynasty's over. It's a lot easier to make changes and get better when you're 10-2. And when you're 10-3, it's a lot easier to make those changes than when you go to 8-4 and 7-5. So make the changes. All right, grow from them and make some changes. That's what I'm saying.
Morgan, I got to get in here because this is what I wanted to talk about, and this is where I intend to shock the world, especially Houston right now.
Before we get into this, I'm really excited. I want to let everybody know, like the video if you like the video.
Yes, absolutely. Look, Casey Cregan gets in and says, "Fired up Big Al is my favorite Big Al," and honestly, it's a lot of fun for me too. And I'm about to fire Houston up because Houston and almost every Clemson fan I've heard talk about this is dead wrong when they talk about this trick play that we did on the kickoff. All right. And it's funny because there's not a coaching decision that I will defend in that game except this one. All right, look, people are crying about Clemson not having this killer instinct. They're right. We didn't even have the killer instinct a lot of times when we were, in our national championship years. I mean, we let so many games come closer than they should have been, okay?
Mhm.
Clemson has lacked this for a long time. This Clemson team, they don't have the killer instinct either, and we all know that. They're not talented enough to just line up and beat anybody they play. We've seen that for 2 years. Okay, so what happened was Clemson got up. They needed a big play. They got a big play. They went up 16-7. Now's their chance. They pull off this secret trick play, which a bunch of people are going to say, why are we getting cute? Why are we getting cute? Blah, blah, blah. It worked. The play worked. The fumble had nothing to do with the fact that they got cute. The guy was like holding on to Phil Moffa's leg and he just like drops it forward. It was one of the most fluke accidents I think I've ever seen. Had nothing to do with the trick play. The trick play, they were like, hey, this Clemson team is not good enough to get this done with just lining up and pounding people and doing what we do. When that's what we expect as Clemson fans. But in this particular case, this season, have we seen them play a complete game this season? No, not once have we seen it. We've been waiting on it all year. It has not happened. So I have no issue, none whatsoever, with that trick play call. Again, had Shipley run the ball out to the 35-yard line, everybody saying, great return, great return. The next play, they hand it to Phil Moffa for an end-around run, and he fumbles. Nobody cares. Nobody's worried about the fact that we got cute. It doesn't matter. It's the same result. The cuteness of the play had no bearing on that whatsoever. And you want to talk about cute? Cute was when we went down to South Carolina and we were running the ball right down their throats in the midst of this 5-bomb streak. And they had Sammy Watkins throw a pass that got picked off. That is when the cute crap bothers Clemson fans. That's when it's not okay to do what they did. I had absolutely zero problem with the play after the safety in this particular case, though. And I honestly heard several WCCP guys say the same thing. And I don't care if I'm in the 1% here. I'm telling you, there was nothing wrong with that call.
I get it. I won't disagree with where you're going with that. It's just one of those things that you can look back on where there was a clear that was, I won't say an inflection point because there's others Clemson kept doing, and it really wasn't until the fourth quarter that they just, systems fail. It just was one of those things where it's like, oh, it was there. It was there, man. It was there. And I agree with you on that 2013 one. Like,
oh my gosh, what a
there
disaster.
was no excuse for that play call. That was getting cute. That was
all right. So I got in we have a poll feature, Big Al. I got in on the poll over on YouTube.
Hammered.
And in the poll, I went ahead and put up, I said, do you agree with Big Al? Did you like the trick play after the safety?
Now,
all right,
I will say I didn't necessarily like the trick play. I will say it wasn't as bad a call as everybody's making it out to be. Let's put it that way.
Smoothing it over. Smoothing it over.
I had no issue with it. I really didn't.
All right. Well, maybe I should take down my question because, it's a little bit different than what Big Al
They're going to overwhelmingly agree with Houston, I would imagine. I mean, everybody has. They've talked about it all week, and everybody's agreed. And I'm just sitting there like, I must be the dumbest football guy on the planet because I had no issue with it. I really didn't.
Well, we have almost 100 people watching right now. It's a popular week, obviously, going into the championship game, post-rivalry game. Al, we love these weeks. About as good as, the 200, 300 game live streams when it's national championship week. So we're proud and thankful so much for everybody getting in. Make sure you like the video. All you have to do is hit the thumbs up. That will help the algorithm put more Clemson videos, our Clemson videos out there for Clemson fans, and less of those other guys, especially any less of the other teams is even better for sure, because we want Clemson out there as much as possible. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you can check out our videos when we put them out all week about the Tigers. I will actually be going to the game this weekend. I have a press pass, fellas. I will be there watching the game, and I'll be coming home late, but it's just going to be a Saturday for me. I know a lot of fans say, oh, well, it's not worth it. I'm not going to go, but I'm going to go. Well, I don't know if I can cheer them on or not from the press box, but I will go, and maybe I'll just sit there and do my passing chart ahead of time, or live action passing chart. Maybe I'll do that. But I appreciate everybody getting in and being a part of the show. And again, the best thing that you can do outside of liking the video and subscribing is share it with a friend. Let another Tiger fan know about the channel and about Morgan Allen and Mr. Houston Burnett as we go throughout the year. We don't stop. We literally have done this for almost 4 years. December 18th will be the start of our 4th year. And we talk about when football stops, we talk about recruiting. When recruiting stops, well, recruiting never stops. So then we talk about basketball, we talk football, we talk baseball, we talk softball, a little bit of anything and everything in between for sure. So I really appreciate everybody getting in. Right now, Al, 20 votes, 50-50. 50-50.
Wow, I'm impressed. I must have done a good job arguing it, because on the radio this week it'd have been like 99-1.
It's interesting there. Get into the vote there over on YouTube and let me know what you think. We've got about 20 votes right now. 50-50 over whether or not that play you liked it or not. Maybe, Al, maybe it's that vocal minority that Dabo's talking about. It seems like a majority to me when I get on social media, but you never know. It is that vocal part too. What's funny is I'll say something on Twitter and I'll get 70, 80 likes, but then 1 or 2 guys will comment and argue with me. And it makes me feel like, well, am I right or am I wrong? Well, I know I have 80 likes, but those 80 likes aren't talking to me. It's those 2 guys that want to just blast me about whatever it may be.
That's our job.
You guys are supposed to do that, but you know how it is. The thing recently, guys, the thing that was controversial from my mouth this week was the fan, and I'm not knocking the fan. You do you. But the guy who's on a Barstool Clemson shaking the hands of all the Gamecock fans as they were walking to their car or they were going home. Al, when you were in Tampa, Houston, I don't remember if you went to Tampa or not, but did Alabama fans shake your hand, say good game, see you later, have a good year, have a good off season, hope you drive home is good? I mean, to me, I'm not saying that it's not sportsmanlike. I'm just saying it's a little much for me. I'm just going to go home. I mean, if there's Carolina fans around me that I know and I talk to during the game, because I talk to everybody around me, I'll tell them good game. If I got Carolina friends that I talk to at work, I'll tell them it was a good game or whatever. I'll just say good game. Hey, I hate we lost. It sucks. You got bragging rights for the year. You'll say those cordial things. But I'm not going to sit at an aisle and shake everybody's hand that walks by. That I am not that much. Like I said, if I'm playing softball, I'm going to shake your hand after the game because I'm playing on the field. If I'm coaching softball, I'm going to tell my girls to shake hands and go line up at home plate, shake hands, and I'm going to shake hands because that's what you do. That's sportsmanship. A fan, though, I'm just going to go back to the tailgate, baby. I'm going back to the car. And in that case, I'm just going to get in the car and go home. I don't want to sit there. I don't want to be around, especially after an upsetting loss like that. But anyways, like I said, no knock against the guy. I know he was trying to be, cordial and show that we can be respectful. I get it, but not me. Anyways, I know Houston gave me the big thumbs down. So Houston, you haven't sat out front and shook everybody's hand as they went home?
Take that man's tickets away from him. We don't do that for South Carolina, man. I don't care. You know how many people were running their dadgum mouths on Saturday, how they stormed the middle of downtown Clemson, and we got this guy shaking their hands? No. All right. This is the one time to be a jerk. Do it. Be a jerk.
You're a jerk.
So that day I am.
That song right now when I'm saying it. Let's get back into the chat and see if we can throw something up here and see. Hunter gets in, says, what you guys' thoughts on Chris Vezina? By the way, Christopher Vezina likes my Clemson helmet that I bought. I put a picture up of the Clemson helmet and he was like, dude, I love that helmet. And I was like, Chris, you're going to get your own helmet. What are you talking about? You love my helmet.
Christopher Vezina likes my post.
Yeah, well, you know what, Houston, I didn't want to bring this up, but Al and I have been on videos of commitment videos, and I don't think you have yet. So you got to step up your game, buddy.
Yeah, let me point this out too, though. How many of those stuck?
Hey, you know what? They were committed
until
tired
actually y'all are 0 for 2, homie. So I prefer not to be on there.
Yeah, Tyson says, yeah, screw the Coots. That's what he says. So he agrees with us too. I'll end the poll over here, Al. Al, 29 votes, 52% no, 48% yes for you, big guy. So, still a very,
solid.
Yeah, I mean, it's not some people agree with you. That's for sure. That's
way
for sure.
better than expected.
So about Vizina, from Birmingham, Guy seems to be able to make some clutch plays in games. When I see his highlights, obviously he's not like a 5-star or anything, but the guy is a gamer, and that's really what I think Clemson needs the most at the quarterback position. Really, any team needs a big time gamer, but you want that guy. And I know that it's beating up the play calling is warranted. But you can't tell me that Deshaun and Trevor didn't have crap play calls that they didn't turn into good plays. I don't necessarily think you get that with DJ, and I'm not saying it's because he can't. I just see more often than not, he'll take the sack, or more often than not, he'll throw the ball away. Whereas Spencer Rattler, for example, would roll out and chuck the ball downfield, or he would look for somebody he would change his position of attack from the pocket to outside the pocket to see if there's a new angle that opens up, to see if he can buy himself some time. I see that with Cade Klubnik a little bit. Sometimes I might see it a little bit too much, where he's trying to overdo the moving around thing. And maybe that's what I think from Cade, why he might not be ready. But on Vizina's part, when I see his high school stuff, again, it's high school, it does seem like he has that kind of knack to extend plays when maybe the play wasn't the best play. Houston, what do you think?
So I'm going to point something out real quick. Cade Klubnik played at the highest division of Texas high school football. Every single one of his playoff games were in front of full capacity or near full capacity crowds in college stadiums. All right. Chris Vizina plays in private or for a private school in Alabama. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything like that. I think Chris Vizina is a gamer. I want to be hand up. He's a gamer. But I also don't want to just make this sound like I feel like there's a lot of people that have just tossed in the towel on Cade. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah. Hey, let's slow down a little bit. I think Cade's going to be fine. I think this is a good compliment. Like, I think knowing that you've got a guy like Christopher Vizina, I think what's imperative for him is to get the offense back into a consistent mode of where you can get guys in at different points in the game and feel comfortable putting them in, right? There were several times this year that you wanted to put in Cade and get him reps, but they didn't trust the offense to do this. Louisiana Tech, perfect example of it. Louisville was a reason why I don't know why they kept taking him out. They didn't wait until the final drive against Miami to put him in, and he leads a scoring drive. So he has had times, Cade has, where he looked great. First drive that he had against Georgia Tech, everybody's like, he's winning a national championship. One play against Notre Dame, everybody's like, I just don't think he's got it. He's a freshman. Like, you got to give it time. Now, look, if we're midway through next year and he's, 3 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, that's a whole nother story. But I think where it needs to be is getting to where Cade can develop, have opportunities to get Christopher Vizina in there. I know some people are saying we need to get a seasoned quarterback and put him in there. And there's a warranted argument for that. But I want to point this out. After the 2010 season, did Taj Boyd really have that much experience? So that's just something to think about.
Al, I really like Cade. I mean, I think that, I mentioned that I would like to have seen him start. I think that when you look back at the game, people say, why did they put him in? I think that the game flow really handicapped what Clemson could do. If it was me, and I think about these things during a game, like, what would I do on this down? What would I do right now with this clock? What would I do, right? There were times where I thought, okay, DJ has something wrong with his hands. He's perspiring on his palms or something. I don't know. Palms are sweaty, mom's spaghetti type thing. I mean, he's throwing it and it's a duck. He's throwing it into the ground. I thought, get the man some gloves, because Peyton Manning's wore gloves, Drew Brees' wore gloves, Tom Brady's wore gloves. I mean, the best have wore gloves when they've needed it. It seemed like DJ was slipping, the ball was slipping out of his hand. I felt like that might have helped, but obviously, nobody listens to me, but that's just what I thought from the outside. But I also thought, like some of the fans thought in the chat, hey, it's time for Cade. But then I really thought, well, it could be time for Cade, but they are still up 9. They're trying to just get it moved down the field. Okay, well, all right, I get it. Now let's try it again next time. Oh crap! Now they're starting on their 2-yard line. Well, you're not going to put Cade in on your 2-yard line. But then it's like, maybe you should, but no, he really didn't do really well against Notre Dame on the 2-yard line. So let's go back to DJ. And then it's like, oh crap, there's 4 minutes left. You're not going to put Cade in now, So I really felt like what happened is, if you really were going to get Cade in that game, they would have had to seriously try to put him in Miami and Louisville, and they didn't.
I don't understand why there hasn't been a more concerted effort to put a package in for him this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what they did with Deshaun, right? They didn't just trot Deshaun out there and say, figure it out, buddy. They had a package for him to start the season. And that's what I was expecting for Cade. And that's what it looked like it was going to be, sort of, at the Georgia Tech game. And then they've just been like, hey, buddy, figure it out on your own. Sayonara, man. And I'm like, man, what is this? Like, how are we managing this? Like, you got a kid that needs to build some confidence, obviously, but like, we don't have enough information, enough, knowledge of what he can do and can't do. And man, just, it was just the whole management of the quarterback position this year has been, I don't want to use, I feel like this is overused, but coaching malpractice. That's something I'd say.
Edward gets in, Al, and says, when it was 24-0 to start a second half against Miami, Cade should have been in the game.
Yeah, I thought that was a potential possibility as well. Look, this is, again, it's Clemson team, that the same team that we were last year. We don't get a big enough lead to put these guys in a lot, So when you get your few opportunities, you need to take advantage of it. We did that against Georgia Tech, probably a little later than I would have liked, but still, I mean, Georgia Tech, hung around. They had a good third quarter, I believe it was. I can't even remember. That was a long time ago now, it seems like, but it's frustrating to say the least. I remember this was a South Carolina game. I think we were down, and it was one of our last, couple of drives that we were going on. Maybe I can't remember. It was one of South Carolina's, it seemed like 20 punts that landed inside the 5. Unbelievable. And I turned to my father-in-law and I said, look, you might think I'm crazy, and almost every Clemson fan might think I'm crazy starting this, deep in our own territory, but I would bring Cade in right here. I mean, if to me, it looked like we should be running the ball. And, man, Cade has the wheels, no doubt. We know that. We understand his decision-making obviously is questionable right now. And as a freshman, that's okay. Like Houston said, by the way, Houston, you were dead on, by the way. I'm glad you're back on track. So that's good. Very happy for you. So he's a freshman. We're not giving up on anybody. Anybody sane is not giving up on Cade. All right. So that's first and foremost. And I think he's going to be just fine. It was disappointing that we weren't able to get him into the game more this season, and he wasn't able to get his opportunities. But I just felt like there were times if we needed to run the ball, have him run the RPO, because, DJ struggled with that a lot this year. Yeah, he's got some, yards running the ball, and he ran the ball decent against South Carolina. But there are some big plays to be made, and DJ's not fast enough to make them. And his decision-making in the RPO game specifically has not been the best. So I was like, hey, if you give the ball to Cade and tell him, hey, don't throw it, whatever you do, but, read the defensive end or whatever it may be, pull it when necessary. I thought there were going to be some big plays to be made, but we didn't get to see.
Well, we just got a big donation here, a tip from AA3050. Al just dropped out. Here we go. Pull him back up here, Big Al. All right, there you go, Big Al. All right, so AA3015 gave us a $4.99 tip. Thank you so much, AA3015, for contributing to the show and being a supporter. We really appreciate it. Jason, his question is, Jason Priester, JP, a friend of the show, over on allclemson.com, Sports Illustrated's wing of Clemson coverage. Jason Priester says that the game didn't hurt upcoming recruiting, says just the opposite. I have heard the same as well. He says he asked for our thoughts. I've heard the same as well. You know, on Thursdays, I'm on Mickey's show and I get to hear Paul Strelo talk about it. It seems like there was some good results from that game because the recruits got to see what happens when there's a loss. And Dabo coming in there and, you know, showing some tough love, but also showing a ton of love as well, and encouragement and just uplifting and being positive and trying to stay focused on what's next while still acknowledging the disappointment. Dabo, obviously, we all agree, is one of the best leaders that we've ever seen on and off the football field, as a father, as a Christian, as a football coach. And I think he's a great example. It's not surprising to any of us that he made a great impact on these recruits because of, you know, we've seen him for over 10 years now. So, you know, we know what to expect from Dabo Swinney. I expect nothing less, especially after the moment where Antonio Williams fumbled the punt, a punt that could have been, if the ball was hung on to and they went back to running the ball, it could have been either a touchdown. There was 2 minutes and 22 seconds left, fellas. It could have been a touchdown midfield, or worst case scenario, your best player, one of your best players, BT Potter, has an opportunity, which he had no opportunities in the game, which is huge. But Dabo Swinney takes him aside, and there's moments where Dabo chews your tail, but there's moments where Dabo coaches you up too, because as Alan Houston has mentioned, Antonio Williams is a freshman. Antonio Williams is the future. You've got a couple more years with him. He's somebody that's going to have multiple opportunities. And also, when you know your players, when you know recruiting, when you've been with them, you also know that the Holloways and the Williams, they've had a tough recruiting bout, specifically with South Carolina, and they haven't treated them very well even before he came on to Clemson. So there was some animosity there between the two teams, and specifically with that player, to the point where I believe the Cotton Gin afterwards said, "Nice hands, Antonio." Very disrespectful way from a company in Columbia, right? So
Beamer was trash talking him on the field.
And when he dropped one of the passes, Beamer was like clapping and walking out towards him, trying to clap at him, right? Which is so disrespectful. And you know he was getting that not only the whole game, but he was getting that in his recruiting process as well. He wanted to come to Clemson ultimately, and he did, but there was a lot of problems there in the whole process, a lot of animosity, like I said, a lot of bitterness between the two. And so it was very important for Antonio to have a good game. And he had a couple of good catches, but he had some 2 key drops as well, and a fumbled punt there as well. But Dabo elected to coach up, to take him aside and talk to him personally. And that really resonated with a lot of the recruits. Another thing I'll say about recruiting, and I'll throw it to you guys, is that it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. Dabo Swinney has recruited when his team was 6 and 7. Dabo Swinney has landed 5-star guys when he had no national championships. So while the environment is changing and Dabo does need to adapt to the environment, we're not saying that he shouldn't. We're not saying he needs to stay in his old ways, but he has proven that he has been able to change what Clemson was into what it is now. Who's to say that he can't do it again or adjust? And I mean, Dabo's not an idiot. He's not going to sit here and say, well, I'm just not going to win games because of my values. No, he's super competitive. Mickey tells me this all the time. Dabo, behind closed doors, is like one of the most competitive dudes he's ever met. I mean, he does not like losing. It's not just okay to lose. Dabo hates it. So as much as he wants to show and support on the outside, he's letting his team know and his coaching staff know this is not acceptable on the inside. Guys, what do you think? Houston, we'll start with you. Recruiting-wise, do you really think it was as bad as the fans feel?
I don't know. I mean, if this is what they're saying, if this is what JP and Strelo are saying, those are the guys that kind of have their finger on the pulse, then maybe it's not. And it is an interesting perspective that I haven't thought about. How often do you get to see how Clemson reacts to a loss at home? Not many in the last 6 years. And maybe it is interesting for a recruit to see it's not all peaches and roses how they react. And so that's impressive to know that. And look, they got a commitment this week from a kicker that and there was no timeline. I know that there was some connections with Clemson, but I know that he was talking to North Carolina and all that kind of stuff like that. And all of a sudden he commits. So I'm not going to say it's just going to lead to, an avalanche of 5 stars committing, but maybe it is something that resonates to recruits on how that you're cared about and coached. But who knows? I don't know. I also want to see kind of what shakes out with the portal. But I think if this is the way that they're moving, it's always a good sign.
Al, what do you think? I'll put it up in the chat as well because I want to get your thoughts as in the chat here. I'll put up a question about recruiting and we'll take a poll. Al, tell us what you think.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's going to hurt anything short term by any means. I think the issues, and they talk about this in the recruiting world, is it usually affects the next class more than it does this particular class, losses anyways in a season. And so it is frustrating, with the fact that there was 3 offensive linemen from South Carolina, one of whom at least is viewed as a South Carolina lean, one is viewed as a Clemson lean, and one of whom is kind of up in the air. To have that, to have a showing where we're not dominating South Carolina anymore, that could be frustrating and may hurt us in the long run. I don't know. That's to be seen. But Dabo's going to be able to sell. Dabo can sell anything at any time. He's proven that. I think in this particular short-term situation, it might have been a cool thing for them to see how they react in a loss, because probably most of the guys that we will finish with in this class wanted to go to Clemson anyways. So the fact that they were able to see how he handles the loss, I don't think is going to affect them, and I don't think it's going to hurt recruiting in the short term. It potentially could long term, but I have my doubts about that as well.
I said this to somebody in the comments. You really, if you know how to angle it, I mean, and Dabo says this all the time. You're only gonna have maybe one undefeated team. Right? You are only going to have one for sure. Maybe one gets left out because they're a group of 5 or something like that, right? But really, you're going to have one undefeated team, maybe one loss team. You're going to have a bunch of 2-loss and 3-loss teams, maybe even 4-loss teams that are good teams. They just didn't win some key games and things didn't go their way. Some injuries happened. It's not uncommon for Clemson. We act like one loss is really bad, but it's not really uncommon as Houston disappears for us. Hopefully he'll come back. But yeah, it's not uncommon that you have a loss, and we have to be able to understand what happens. We can be frustrated, but we have to also prep ourselves. I said this on Twitter recently, like, I'm going to start working on not acting like the wide receiver room is a shock to me. Hey, if they go up to Charlotte and lay an egg and it's the wide receiver's fault, I'm not going to walk away from that game, oh man, angry, red face, because at this point, Al, it's the hands you have been dealt, right? And it is the hands that you recruited. So it's the
exactly
that you wanted, right? But they just didn't pan out. Al, there's plenty of times where guys don't hit. I'll tell you this, looking back at that 12-team recruiting class, a lot of those guys actually did get used. But you look at from that Taj Boyd class on, there were 26-person class, 27-person class. And I started counting. I'm like, only 12 of these guys really did anything. Yeah. So it's not uncommon that guys get recruited. They're highly recruited guys, and they don't pan out. There's a big learning curve from high school to college. And so you can't expect it. Now, it all happening at wide receiver is a concern, but it kind of goes back to, we got a lot of people in the chat talking about Jeff Scott. Some of these guys that aren't on the team anymore are Jeff Scott's final guys. Yeah. Honestly, I'll say Jeff Scott's final class is a big part of the problem.
They are a big part of the problem. And the crazy thing is they were highly regarded, and sometimes you miss. It's weird to have, Clemson. We're not used to this in the past several years, at least, but we're not used to Clemson missing on so many guys, especially these kind of top tier, highly rated, highly thought of guys. It's just not common. And this is it's a passing game. We can talk about Will Shipley and how great he is, and he is. and we can run the ball. And if you can run the ball and win, awesome. But it's a passing game. I feel like if you have a good running back, you can stack the box and you can stop that from happening for the most part if you really want to. I don't care how many guys you have in the defensive backfield. If you've got good wide receivers, they're going to be open. Like, you can bring 3 people every time. If you don't get any pressure on the quarterback, he's going to find somebody open. It's a passing game. So Clemson's got to find some receivers. They got to find some playmakers there if they want to get back to the level they were.
Guys, we're a little past the hour. Houston's back in. I wanted to bring up this screenshot that John Sarian mentioned in the chat a couple of minutes ago. It's I'm kind of shifting here back to DJ. Check out this screenshot, fellas. See if we can make it bigger here. Recruits.collegefootball, or CFB, recruits.cfb over on Instagram. Now, I don't know if this is legit or just, some troll job that's really good, but it says, update, hashtag Clemson quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is expected to transfer out west this offseason, with hashtag UCLA being a very likely destination. Should DJ hit the portal, 5-star defensive lineman Mateo Uiagalelei, 2023, DJ's little brother, is expected to become a package deal with him. Now, the package deal thing makes sense to me. In the past, I would have preferred it being a package deal to Clemson, but now it's not really surprising to me to think that DJ would want to have a fresh start. Honestly, for me, I could see DJ staying, and I think that if DJ stays, that the offense needs to adjust to be able to suit him better and not try to force him into being some, elite running quarterback option read guy, because he's just not that guy. I think they would need to revamp it, almost like they had to revamp it for Kelly Bryant. Now, if he doesn't stay, I can also see that too, because he's had 2 years of opportunities. He's got a lot of film on him. He knows what he does good. He knows what he doesn't do good. I could see him wanting a fresh start, being closer to his mom and his dad, going back to LA and joining his brother, maybe reinventing himself a la Bo Nix, and having an opportunity. I don't wish any wrong on DJ. If he actually goes out and has an amazing final year, I would be cheering for him. I want the guy to be able to pursue his dreams, because, it's one of those things, before you know it, you don't have the opportunity to play football anymore. You got to go get a real job like the rest of us. So I want him to pursue his dreams. What do you think, Big Al, about this post? Like I said, I don't know if it's legit or not, but it is something that's circulating on the Clemson forums.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any doubt that there's some potential to this. I mean, people throw out stuff all the time and nobody really knows. But yeah, I mean, hey, maybe this is really the case, and that's all right. Yeah, wish DJ well. I'm not the kind of guy who's gonna bash a Clemson kid, especially somebody who comes and gives it everything they've got. If he's doing his best and it's not good enough, that's fine. And some people just need a fresh start. I have a hard time believing we see him at Clemson next year, whether, he decides to try to, test himself at the combine or whatever it may be, or, whether he goes somewhere else and just transfers to try to get a fresh start somewhere. It's kind of one of those things. You just wish the kid well and you move on.
Houston, I know that Clemson's not going to stop recruiting. Al, we've made jokes plenty of times that recruiting is just as much as replacing you as when you leave as it is replacing you while you're still here.
Yeah.
So Houston, Clemson's continuing to recruit. They've got Cade, they've got Vizina, they've got Lagway. They're trying to get Lagway anyways. I say but they're trying to get Lagway or Jordan Davis. So they're still continuing to recruit that quarterback position, as they should. What are your thoughts on a post like this?
Well, I actually follow this on Instagram. They normally don't just post this out of the blue. They are like a secondary posting account. So somebody else had to have said that. So it's either come from Rivals or it's come from 247. Somebody has said this and this account picked up on it. So I don't know how much validity, but it's out there that they posted this. The irony of it is, as much ire as he's drawn at Clemson, and obviously I'm the same way. I'm not going to bash the kid. He's worked harder than any of us at playing football. I actually got a message today. I work for a large company. I won't say it on air, but a large across the nation company. And there's an alumnus that's on my team of UCLA. And I mentioned this post to him. He's like, I hope we get him. I'd love to have him. And it's a different environment out there. And I think, if anything, it's a change of pace. I'll be honest. I think the offense that UCLA runs is more conducive to DJ. It's a Chip Kelly offense. He's going to be asked to run a lot more, but I think it's just a better situation for him. Go back in California, change up pace, go to UCLA. And if he chooses to do that, I don't think he's going to have anybody object to that. I think everybody's going to wish him well. Hope that it had worked out better for us, but that's not the case. But that's just one of those things. And when it comes to recruiting, this is one of those things when we talk about the transfer portal. Everybody's going to say we need to get a seasoned vet, need to go, grab up every 5-star or whatever. I think would be more value in this case. Obviously Chris Vizina is filling in for Hunter Johnson's open scholarship. If you have an extra one, see if you can dip in and get a grad transfer that's looking to win somewhere, not necessarily play, just looking to get better. It's hard to find. They're going to have to meet certain standards, and it might be a last minute kind of grab in the portal. But there might be guys out there that'll come in, push Cade and Christopher Vizina. Obviously, Christopher Vizina needs to develop, so that would be a good thing. And you can have someone push Cade. And then also, if push comes to shove, this person could come in a pinch and be able to win you a game. That's the way that I would look at it. Grad transfer is probably the way that they would go if they were going to recruit for this. And then that scholarship would then open up for 2024 for whatever quarterback they were going to get.
Well, that was just our quick thoughts on that. Again, we're getting up to the end of our show here. I'm putting the guys on the spot here. We're going into the last game of we'll say the regular season. It's the championship phase here. It is the ACC championship game against North Carolina. Al, we're putting you front and center because you got to get out of here first. Give us your final thoughts on the game this weekend and what you want to see from the Tigers.
I want to see the same thing I've been asking for all year. I want to see a complete game. I want to see them get up off the mat. Obviously it was a brutal loss against South Carolina. I want to see them come out with some fire. Like, Dabo says, they've still got something to play for. I want them to play like they have something to play for. I want them to play like this ACC championship means something to them going into the potentially the Orange Bowl. And that's what we need. We need this season in on a positive note. And you got to see it from those guys. You got to see the want to. You got to see the grit, the determination from those guys. I want them to come out and do what's necessary to win this game, bring it home, and get us the momentum going into next year.
All right, Big Al, we appreciate you being a part of the show, man. We'll talk to you later. Houston's up next. What are your final thoughts for the Tiger fan base out there and the game coming up this weekend?
Just win. That's all you got to do. I mean, there's going to be a section of the fan base that's always going to have just some ire about this. I wrote about this on Rubbing the Rock, man. 2011, they won the ACC title game, and it kind of felt tainted to me. But at the same time, you appreciate it. They won 10 games. I'd never seen that before. And this is one of those things where you just got to rally. You got to just win and then see what you can do going into the Orange Bowl against potentially Ohio State. So that'll be something interesting going into the end of the year.
Well, we appreciate you also, Mr. Houston Burnett. Everybody go follow him over at The Radio Guy Houston on Twitter. Thank you, sir. Again, this is the Morgan Thomas Show. I'm your host and producer, Morgan Thomas. We appreciate everybody getting in, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Before you leave tonight, you don't have to shake everybody's hand as you go. All you have to do is hit that big thumbs up, like button on the video if you like the video. You don't have to if you don't like the video. If you really like the video, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of our exclusive Clemson content we put out every single week, and be a part of our show. You can hit that bell so you can be reminded, because every Thursday night, 7 p.m., when we're not on the radio, on 105.5 and 97.5 The Roar, we are here live on the internet for you to interact with us. We really appreciate it. I'm actually going to take my computer next time we get in because the studio is so big now. I'm going to try to set the computer up so we can have the live stream while we're going on the radio again. That'll be December 15th, I think. I think it's that week when there's not a basketball game on Thursday. That is when we'll be back in the radio. But it's towards the end of the year. So, man, I really appreciate everybody. Again, we didn't have a Thanksgiving show. If I haven't said it enough, thank you so much for being a part of the show and being a Clemson fan. We really appreciate your support because we wouldn't be here without you. And as always, Tiger fans, this is the Morgan Thomas Show, and we will see you at the top of the hill.